I know. Okay.
All right.
Okay.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. I will establish and open the March 18th meeting of the Missoula Parking Commission and begin with introductions. We'll go this way. I'm Joe Easton, Chair of the Parking Commission. JR.
JR Casillas, board member.
Peter Walker Kelleher, board member.
Stephen Thomas with Jackson Contractor Group.
Stephen Dow, PCI Engineers.
Catherine O'Jay with Missoula in Motion. Linda McCarthy, Downtown Missoula Partnership. I'm Jody Pilgrim. I'm the director for the Missoula Parking Commission.
Alan Newell with the Millennium Building.
Bruce Bugby, Millennium Building.
Griffin Smith, Missoula Newspaper.
Brenda Payton, accounting with JCCS.
Great. Oh, thank you. And online.
Tiffany Brander, Parking Services Commissioner. It's been a while.
I'm Tyler Kirk with Jackson Contractor Group.
Great.
Danette Christensen, Missoula Parking Commission, Admin 3.
Thanks. That looks like everybody online and everybody in the room. Moving on to public comments and announcements. Do we have anybody that would like to address the commission or any member of the public addressing an item that is not on our agenda?
There are no members online.
Thank you. We have minutes to approve from our board meeting of January 14th. Any commission member has read or would like to make a motion to correct or approve?
I've read the minutes. I'd make a motion to approve.
I can second the motion.
It has been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Thank you, Tiffany. Number 5, any adjustments to the agenda, commission members?
No.
Okay, Catherine, we'll move on to you, our communications and presentations today, and I'll step out for a quick second, but go ahead.
Okay. I'll share my screen. Okay, so yeah, thanks so much. My name is Catherine O'Jay with Missoula in Motion, and I'm here to appeal for our annual match request. You guys have been a consistent match partner for Missoula in Motion, providing us with some local funding, and I will just do a little presentation. I'm just going to present on our annual report. So some highlights from 2024 and a little bit of what's to come with what we have planned for 2020 for this current year. Feel free to interrupt me if you guys have questions at any point. Are you good there?
Yeah,
I have my
clearing
sound
this
off.
off the screen because there's a box that's covering the head of that bicycle.
I'll let go.
Yeah, you can go.
Okay. So if you're not familiar with us, we are an agency within the city of Missoula, and our goal is to increase the use of sustainable transportation in Missoula, and doing that through education and encouragement programming. So we know that having great infrastructure is also really important to shifting how people get around. But we also know that it often takes more than just building a new bike facility or offering bus service for people to change their habits. We know that driving alone for the majority of your trips is just a really deeply ingrained habit in our community. And so if we're trying to shift the culture, it takes a little bit more than just providing the infrastructure. It takes having some education about how to use those facilities, and then some encouragement programming, incentives, things like that, to get people to adopt new habits. So we've been focusing on this in Missoula since 1997. We've been around for a while. We know that when one person is able to choose sustainable transportation, it really benefits everyone. It means lower emissions in our community, less congestion, and it also frees up parking for those that do need to drive. So managing that parking demand as well, which I know you guys are focused on. So one really exciting thing that we accomplished last year was we were among the first organizations of our kind, which are called transportation demand management. So managing that demand for transportation and parking. So we were one of the first to be accredited. So we were recognized by the Association of Commuter Transportation, which is the national organization focusing on the type of work that we do. So we were part of a pilot program and we were one of 9 to become one of the first that were accredited out of the 16 that were in the pilot. So we're really excited. It was a great way to evaluate our programs, know that we are providing best practices in our industry, using our resources to the best degree possible to serve our community and try to create some positive change. So some of these stats here, in order to be accredited, it was a pretty rigorous application process. And it required us to send out a survey to our constituents and then also to some stakeholders. So we got some really positive feedback that you can see here. A lot of people recommending our services and a lot of our workplace partners crediting us for their efforts that they have done at their place of employment to encourage sustainable transportation to their employees. Way to Go Missoula is our online platform where people can log trips and earn rewards. We use it all year round. We run a lot of programs through it, but it's a great way to engage people and provide some incentive for them to choose those habits. We partner with 2 different local businesses every single month to offer just a small incentive. And so we also, one thing to note is it's not just the sustainable modes you normally think about. So biking, walking, riding the bus, or carpooling, vanpooling, but also working from home. So we also promote teleworking. So that's a great way to kind of incorporate a lot of additional people as well, because ultimately that's achieving our goal of reducing emissions, eliminating a trip altogether. So 2 of our flagship programs are our challenges that we do throughout the year. So we know kind of gamifying sustainable transportation and creating a little competition among our community members is a really great way to spark a change in one's habits and to get more people engaged with us. So we partner with a lot of different local businesses to get really great prizes to incentivize people. Our commuter challenge is our annual spring challenge. We do it for 2 weeks in May. We have over 80 workplaces sign up typically. And the goal of it is to get every single person at your workplace to try just one sustainable commute over a 2-week period. So we're not just preaching to the people who are already riding their bikes every day or riding the bus. We're really trying to get everyone to think about how they're getting around and be aware of all of the options and see if they can fit one of those options into their habit, even just one day a week. So that's a really great program. We like to do it in the spring because oftentimes people default back to driving for the winter months, but might be more likely to bike or walk or even walk to a bus stop during the warmer months. So it's a good time to kind of kickstart that healthy habit for the warmer weather months. Our Clear the Air Challenge happens every January. It's our kind of winter push to encourage people to continue thinking about sustainable transportation during the months where it might be the hardest to do, but it also can have the greatest impact. Knowing that our valley has a lot of inversion during the winter, which traps the CO2 emissions in our airspace. So again, just encouraging people to do what they can when they can. So even if it's just one trip a week, collectively, that can have a really big impact on our community if everyone was able to do that. Every year we hire an intern to do a seasonal neighborhood focused program where we do some individualized marketing to residents in a neighborhood, providing them with some really tailored conversations and information so they are able to request transportation resources. Then we provide them with the things that they requested. We send out a mailer and they can return it. And then upon delivering those resources, we have some try and set up a time when they're home to meet with them and talk about how they're getting around and provide them some really one-on-one trip planning, help them find the route that works best for them right at their doorstep. So last year we did the University District. It was really successful. We had a lot of engagement. This year we will be focusing on the north side. So we often try and choose a neighborhood where they do have pretty accessible transportation options and do have destinations that are pretty easy to get to using sustainable transportation in that area. So kind of the low-hanging fruit, getting those people who do have good options in our urban core to be aware of those options and encouraging them to use them. We also focus a lot on equity, making sure there are mobility options for all people in our community. Some things we do, we offer ride-alongs. So oftentimes riding the bus for the first time can be pretty overwhelming for people to navigate. So we will do a ride-along with them. This year we did quite a few. We had one person who had a disability and had a dog with them and was a little nervous about taking the dog on the bus. So we worked with Mount Line and did a ride along with her, and then some older members of our community that were a little nervous about navigating the system. So that's been a really successful program. We also give out bike lights, knowing that when people, the safer they feel, the more likely they are to feel confident making the choice to get around by bike. So offering people lights. We offer them not only just at our office, but we also partner with Free Cycles, which serves a lot of people in our community. We also partner with the police department every fall for a Lights at Night campaign. So we provide them with bike lights that they can give out to individuals that when they pull them over for not having lights on their bike, rather than issuing a ticket, they get some information about the safety laws for bicyclists and then get free bike lights so that they have them. That's been a great partnership as well. We also partner with Providence St. Pat's to offer affordable helmet sales throughout the course of the year as well. So we know that an important part of shifting the culture around how we get around here is to share stories and celebrate successes for those who have made those changes and to provide inspiration and encouragement for others. But just that recognition piece can be really important. So we do a number of things. We have our Commuter of Missoula. It's kind of our storytelling series where we feature different people, try and get a diverse group of people to feature and show how they've incorporated sustainable transportation into their routines. Here we picture this woman, Adele. She is a teacher at Hellgate Elementary. She lives on this side of town, and she biked to her work over 100 days this year, and the school got really into it. And when she met 100, everyone was really excited. So she was tracking it last year. So we were excited to share her story because that's a part of town that can be really hard to get to by bike. And it's often a great excuse to say, oh, I can't bike to work. Like that's not a fun commute, but she committed to doing it this year and was really successful. Our Commuter of the Year Awards, we recognize 2 individuals every year. We do it at downtown tonight at Karis Park. So that's another great event as well. Provide a lot of opportunities to educate the community about their options. We have workplace breakfast, so the partners, the different employers that we work with, we try and keep them engaged throughout the year, providing education, sharing best practices. We also hosted screenings of a film called The Street Project last year, which is covering different communities and their efforts to strive for safer streets for all. And Peter was actually really instrumental in getting that, making that happen here last year. Another thing we did is we created an onboarding video. So we know when someone starts a new job, they're already forming new habits. So that's a really good time to influence them, encourage them to consider all of their transportation options when they're planning out their new commute. And so we have been asked to create a video, or we worked with the city to create one for all city employees last year. So now when any city employee starts, they see the video, which talks about all of the options, transportation options, and then also the resources that we have available to support people. And then we were able to adapt that video, and now we also have one that is able to be shared community-wide. So I know the county just started using it, and some other employers are showing it to all of their new employees, which is great. Sunday Streets is our annual Open Streets event. We closed down about 1 mile of road to cars and opened it up to people for biking, walking, and we have a number of organizations come and do activities. It's a great way to highlight some of our sustainable transportation infrastructure that we have here in Missoula. So last year we did it in the U District. We highlighted some of our greenways, showed people how easy it can be to get to different destinations within their neighborhood without having to get in a car. This year we'll be doing it in the north side. All right, so we have a couple programs where we have kind of pop-up, more temporary installations. And so one is our First Friday Parklet program. We partner with the Parking Commission on that. So you have generously donated the parking spaces available. But every First Friday, we open it up to local businesses to host parklets in front of their business. And it's a great way to kind of enhance our downtown and make it more pedestrian friendly during those First Friday events, and also a great opportunity for businesses to kind of expand out onto the street and engage with the community. We also have temporary bike parking facilities that we can use for large community events. So we had some at Karis Park last year before the permanent bike parking was installed. We loaned them out to the to when they did their concerts at the stadium last year. So they definitely got a lot of use, and they're a great resource to have. And we are fully funded by Congestion Mitigation Air Quality Federal Grant Program. And that requires local match dollars. So that's what we're appealing to today. We have several match partners that have continued to support us for several years. As our programs continue to serve a growing Missoula, our grant money has stayed static for several years, but we're now spending the entirety of it, and we've combined some of our city programs to expand the funding we have access to. But for every dollar we spend, we need that match money. So we're appealing to all of our partners for additional match this year, so that we can still continue to provide these services to our community. We also love to highlight, we do get a lot of financial sponsors, but we also have a ton of in-kind sponsors. So we partner with several different local businesses to have them either donate gift cards to be prizes for our programs, or we have 2 sponsors a month that offer a small incentive to about 50 people that log sustainable trips. So we're really proud of the relationships we've built with the different businesses around town, and love to kind of align with them, and they really support our mission and the work that we do. So that is all I have today. But if anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you, Catherine. Any questions for Catherine? If the commission would be okay, we have an action item on this request, as we do every year. So it's number 9.1. Without objection, I'd move that up and run that action item now. Okay. So we have a suggested motion written in our agenda or in the presentation. Anybody have any questions or suggested motion?
I have a motion to approve MIM funding match. I have a motion to approve $15,000 in match funding for Missoula in Motion.
Motion is in order.
that.
And a second from Tiffany. Any other questions or comments?
I'd just like to take a moment to thank Catherine and your team. What an awesome accomplishment of the year. Accreditation is such a vigorous, crazy process. As you all know, we were part of the pilot program for our accredited parking organization, and it's hard to be part of the pilot program. So I applaud you folks, and we always see great value in your services. So thank you, and thank you for taking the extra steps to get that accreditation and show other communities how awesome Missoula is.
Thank you, Danette. Will you ask for a roll call vote?
Yes. Peter Walker Keller, how do you vote?
Approve?
J.R. Casillas, how do you vote?
Approve.
Tiffany Brander, how do you vote?
Approve.
Joe Easton, how do you
Approve.
vote?
Approve.
And Mike is not in there, is he?
No.
No.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you again.
Thank you,
Great.
Catherine.
Thank you guys so much.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Thank your staff as well.
Okay,
Part of what makes Missoula a great place to live.
All right, thank you. I'm gonna head out.
yes, yeah.
Yeah. We'd question your sanity if you stayed.
All right, Brenda, your turn.
All right. Jody, are you able to share the dashboard? Okay.
Sorry, it's really difficult to navigate on this tiny screen.
Oh, I bet. All right, we're going to be looking at the January financials. You can go ahead and go to page 2. Not a lot of activity on the asset side. We did see a decrease in cash of about $50,000 this month. We are still tracking a variance to the city of around 70,000, pending the finalization of their audit. So we'll get that trued up when they close out their books. The other item on here is the prepaid meter warranty. There was an additional 19,000 that was spent in January there that will amortize out over the year. On page 2, no big changes on the liabilities. At the very bottom, we've got the available cash. And we did see a decrease there of about $93,000 over last month. Aside from the decrease in actual cash, we did have some increases in the accrued liabilities. So that's why we're seeing a larger variance there on the available cash. Next page on the revenue and expense side. So overall, January, the revenue was down compared to prior year end budget. And then expenses were up comparatively as well. On the expense side, we had 3 pay periods in January, so that did impact the numbers for the month. But when we're looking at a comparison of year to date, we're seeing a variance there in the parking tickets of about 30% compared to the budget, and then a decrease of about 35% from prior year. So that's the largest variance there. Overall revenue is down about 3% from budget and 8% from prior year. On the expense side, the biggest variances there year to date are within the general and admin and the professional fees. So the general and admin is kind of a catch-all for a lot of different areas. The biggest variances that we're seeing are within TDM, travel, and then printing and supplies. So all of those areas are down for the year, leading to a variance to budget of 48% and then down 16% from last year. And then while we budgeted for higher professional fees, a lot of those are getting included in the work in process for the construction. So that is not showing up as an actual expense here. So total expenses are down about 23% compared to budget and 4% from prior year. And then we did have a loss for the month of just over 100,000. So this brings our year-to-date gain to just under 100,000. So ahead of budget, but we are about 50% behind where we were at last year at this time. The only real changes here are just with the payroll accounts. Because of those 3 pay periods, we're seeing those bump up into the upper tiers of the top expenses. And then same with this next page. So down at the very bottom, Jody, on the expense side, you're going to see that spike there is we have the 3 pay periods that happens twice a year. So. And no big changes on the cash and long-term debt on the next page. Those are pretty steady until we have our next bond payment. So pretty quiet month overall, but any questions from anybody?
Jody, do you have an opinion on parking tickets being down, the variance being off so much, people behaving more, what?
It's traffic. It was a cold month. I feel like there was less traffic down in downtown specifically. And we've had a couple of our electric scooters go offline, and we had some officers on foot for a lot of the month of January. Which led to, it's just less efficient to issue tickets on foot than it is to with the LPR and the scooter. So I think those 2 factors.
Other questions for Brenda or Jody?
I just have my standard question. Brendan, anything that concerns you?
Nothing at this point, no.
Yeah, I mean, there's just so
Mm-mm.
much inherent volatility.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anything else, Brenda?
No, that's it.
Okay. Jody, your turn.
We share my screen again, but change the screen while sharing and go to directors. Okay, so director's report for today. You all got it in your board packet, so I will just review briefly, and a lot of the items on here are also in our action items, and so we won't spend too much time on those. Bank Street. MPC has reviewed all the options presented for rebuilding, repairing, and demolishing the structure. The initial cost estimates for each of these options are attached to the agenda item online. Additionally, staff met with stakeholders per board direction to inquire about their appetite for the flexibility in the height easement. At this time, there is no appetite for a change to that easement. During our Bank Street action item, I'll go over the repair, the rebuild, and the demolition options in a little more detail. And we have Jackson and DCI here to answer questions about those at that time. Our garage maintenance planning consultation is also on our action item list, but after we started addressing the failure at Bank Street, we thought it was very important to have a maintenance plan for all of our assets, starting specifically with our garages. And so we have been asking for quotes from different garage consultants, and we will be asking the board today to approve us to select a consultant for a garage maintenance plan not to exceed $50,000, and we'll talk about that in our action items as well. Jurisdictional expansion, we are seeking board approval to change the ordinance language about how our jurisdiction boundaries can be changed. And so we will discuss that as well in our action items. We'll skip over financials. I asked Brandon, our maintenance supervisor, to provide a maintenance update. Brandon believes that winter has ended, as we all know from this morning. This update was written before this morning's snow. But maintenance shifts there.
Wishful thinking.
I know. We have at least winter 2 and winter 3 to come, I think. Maintenance shifts away from snow removal and management into garage and lot cleanup during the springtime. So they're making plans to get in and clean out all the debris from our garages, do sweeping in our different lots and areas, and just general cleanup and assessment for the spring. Maintenance has been working on a new firmware upgrade for the on-street meters called PayStation 8. It is an extremely slow process, but we have, as of this morning, 13 meters using that new system. And just as a quick reminder, that takes it from, it puts all of the meter information in a cloud-based system so that they can be updated more easily and quickly for any future upgrades. Starting the week of the 17th, which is this week, we have a T2 tech here to update the credit card readers in our parks equipment. They got the first one online this morning. It's our Main Street entrance and exit. And so they will be moving through the rest of the facilities throughout the week to upgrade that credit card reader. That's the spring cleanup. And then Brandon will be going to Indiana the last week of this month for a T2 training at their Parks training facility. Parks is the name of our gating equipment. So he will be getting fully trained up on how to maintain our parks equipment. Our staffing update and staffing development is provided by Kelly Roseboom, our business manager. We are fully staffed with 13 employees at this time. And then she also mentioned Brandon's training. Board changes. So you might have noticed up on the screen, we have MCAT in the board meeting with us now. MCAT partners with the city of Missoula to provide a live stream of board meetings. So prior to this, in order to watch the board meeting in real time, people had to join the board meeting through Teams. But this MCAT recording will allow for it to be streamed in real time, so people can watch it, but they don't have to join the meeting in the meeting room. And MCAT also offers closed captioning so that people can read along in the meeting in real time, which is a nice feature that we don't have in Teams. And then there's a guarantee that the recording will be available by the end of the day for all board meetings. There have been a couple of board meetings in the past year that have failed to record for whatever reason. And so bringing MCAT on board is a way to resolve that, that ongoing concern and to give a standardized level of access to the public. What this means for the board is after this meeting, we will be transitioning into council chambers for the rest of our board meetings moving forward. So we'll be at the big room at the end of the hall instead of this cozy little Jack reading room. So we have our utilization and oversell update in April of 2024 when the board approved our rate increases last year. We were directed to work toward a 10% oversell across all our lease inventory. So reminder, that doesn't mean 10% per area. It just means across our whole inventory, we wanted to be oversold by 10%. That was in line with our parking plan. And we reached that goal in February of this year, thanks to my staff's effort to get through wait lists and get more people parking in our lots. So we are now currently at a 10% oversell. We've started a tracker so that when people call and complain that they can't get access to their leased spaces, we can determine if it's related to other factors like having snow piled up or if we've oversold too much, and then we can adjust at that time. So far, we haven't, outside of the big snow event, we haven't had problems with the oversell rate. And then just a heads up, our annual rate review is coming next month in April by board resolution. We are required to review rates every year. So next month, I will be bringing rate review to the board. In accordance with the parking plan, we are planning to increase the RPP permit rates $20 per year for 5 years until we reach cost recovery. Fiscal year 25 was the first $20 increase. Fiscal year 26, we will be recommending the same increase. Staff will not be recommending an increase in leased parking rates this year, and staff will be recommending a new fine structure during our rate review session. A new fine structure will be presented to the board for initial approval. However, we can't change the fines as a commission. The fines have to be changed by council approval. So we'll have more information on all of that next board meeting. For the director's report.
Are all city boards moving to this MCAT platform and sitting in council chambers?
Most city boards are currently using MCAT to stream their board meetings.
So we're late to the party.
But it's great. I don't know if you have watched any other boards or commissions in your free time, but that closed captioning is really good. The sound and camera equipment in council chambers is a little bit better than it is in here. And there's more seating for the public. Our meetings have become more popular. So I feel like we should be in a bigger space anyway.
Any other questions for Jody?
I do have one, Chair.
Go ahead.
It's me. So You all know that I'll have more questions, but I'll wait for the action items. But the one that isn't associated with an action item that I have a question on, or rather perhaps a request, is on number 9 for your annual rate review. When we meet in April, I think it would be helpful, at least for me, and I think all of us, as we look at any rate changes, that we look at all rate changes. And I believe that the parking plan did recommend a 10% increase for our leases for I think it was 10% per year for the next 3 years because our lease pricing was so low. And that's why I think it would be a missed opportunity for us to at least not discuss that. And perhaps it's not the full 10%, but if maybe you could, just as staff, draw up some figures for us where we could review those at like maybe no increase, 5%, 10%, just something so we have some numbers in front of us to discuss. I think that would be beneficial.
Thank you. I will do that.
Thank you. That's all I have, sir.
Any other questions or comments?
There are no members of the public to present.
Thank you. All right, let's move on to the main events. We have 2 more minor action items that I don't think will be very difficult to discuss and approve, and then we'll move on to Bank Street. So Jody, would you introduce 9 to the jurisdictional expansion motion?
Okay, so since June, when the parking plan was adopted, MPC has been moving toward expanding the parking commission jurisdictional boundaries. So far, we have developed the data collection method that we'll be using to assess new recommended areas. We have set ourselves up to share maps on the City Engaged page for public engagement, as well as share maps with City Council for any approvals. We have met with the mayor and various councilors to review the mapping tool and our plan for the initial expansion into the hip strip. And that map for the initial expansion was shared with you all in the October meeting, just as a reminder. Our next step before going to council for the actual expansion is to update our jurisdictional area ordinance 1022-240, the current version of which is shown on the screen right now, and then the proposed changed version is shown on the screen as well. This would allow for boundary revision by council resolution rather than through an ordinance change for piece by piece boundary changes. To present the council with a boundary map that they can approve through a resolution. This change is not only in line with our plan to expand our jurisdiction, but is in line with the city's adopted land use plan and ongoing code reform efforts. Our ability to support the city's growth will be greatly improved by having an easier way for council to update our boundaries. The language in the proposed change above has been written by City Attorney's Office and approved by staff. You also received in the agenda the ordinance update form that shows this language and will be presented to council for approval once you approve it here today. This is our recommended motion, and I again put the change ordinance language on the screen just for reference.
Will you elaborate again on the difference between approving the jurisdictional boundary change by ordinance or by resolution?
Ordinance is just a longer and more involved process. It requires multiple public hearings and a longer general timeline. And so by resolution allows council to be more flexible and efficient with boundary change.
Is there any reason or expectation why council would not want to change our boundaries by resolution?
Not that I've heard, I have only talked to 3 counselors about it, though. So I haven't polled everyone broadly, but from what I've heard, it is easier for them to by resolution than by change.
The risk of putting you in a position, do you feel or have you been told that the mayor's office supports this change by this ordinance and by in the future changing boundaries by resolution, not ordinance?
Yes, the initial recommendation came from the mayor's office.
Any other questions or possible motion?
I have a motion, but also a request for clarification just for members of the public. Jody, can you just describe a little bit further that making this or bringing this new ordinance language to city council at this time would not change our current and existing jurisdiction? And there would be a separate process for that?
Yes, definitely. So this is a step, an in-between step for changing our jurisdictional area. There is no map included with this language change for council to approve or not to approve. So our existing jurisdictional boundaries will remain the same until council makes a resolution to change them.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's also important for the public to know that we as a commission will be requiring or requesting from staff how we are going to manage the new expansion. We will have additional costs, perhaps FTE, perhaps other equipment that we'll need to acquire in order to manage future expansions. And that discussion has not yet been had. So this is just putting another piece in place so that we can go forward with what we all expect, which is an expansion of the district, but how we are going to manage the expansion of the district, that conversation hasn't happened yet either.
Yes, and there is a lot of guidance for that in the plan that we adopted in June, including data collection methods, public outreach, and what management is standard in the parking industry for different levels of utilization. So there is a lot of guidance around that in our adopted plan.
Thanks, Tiffany. I interrupted you. You were going to make a motion.
Was, sir. Thank you. I would like to approve the new ordinance language for 1022-240 of the Parking Commission's jurisdictional area.
It has been moved.
Second
by JR. Any other discussion? Any
Joe,
comments?
I'd like to just offer a comment,
Sure, go ahead.
which is simply that I'll vote for this, knowing, but also acknowledging that I don't feel, it's not a vote of advocacy. I think I would defer to, I understand it has to go through city council. They get to weigh the pros and cons, but knowing that it's been a recommendation from the mayor's office, I don't object to it. So I'll vote for it.
Any other commission comment? Any comment or questions from the public?
There are no members of the public to comment.
Anybody in the room? Okay. Danette, please call a roll call vote.
Peter Walker Keller, how do you vote?
Approve?
J.R. Casillas, how do you vote?
approve.
Tiffany Brander, how do you vote?
Approve.
Joe Easton, how do you vote?
Approve. The motion carries. Jody, will you introduce 9.3?
Yes. This is our maintenance planning consultation. I'm just starting with the recommended motion on the screen because there's not too much detail to include here, but we have received quotes for conditions assessment and maintenance plans for our Central Park, Park Place, and Rome garages from Walker Consultants and Desmond so far. We are waiting a third quote, which we should have by the end of the week from a consultant called Martin & Martin.
DCI has also offered to scope out the services for us. Once we receive all estimates, we would like to move forward with the conditions assessment and maintenance plan as soon as possible. Based on the quotes that we have received, we expect the work will be under $50,000. This is below the threshold that would require us to do an RFP. So city procurement rules are that if it's going to exceed $80,000, we have to do an RFP process, and this does not fall into that category. This is also within our consulting budget for this fiscal year. And the conditions assessment will help us to understand the state of our assets right now, and what they may need to prolong their useful lives. The maintenance plan will include maintenance items to be performed annually by our staff, as well as optional items for near, mid, and long-term maintenance, which will help the MPC plan for our future maintenance budget. It will also help us to be better stewards of our existing assets. As a reminder, the Bank Street structure repair that we are working on with DCI in Jackson right now includes a maintenance plan. So that structure is not included in the list for this consultation.
This 50,000 is within a consultant budget that we passed last year.
Yes.
And so why do you feel this was needed a motion?
Because it exceeds $10,000. And so we wanted to bring it before the board. I guess I could have brought it before the board as just an FYI, but anytime I spend more than $10,000 on something, I want the board to be aware of why we're doing that. And so if it doesn't need to come to the board for approval in the future, I would be happy to just put them on as my director report FYIs.
Questions or comments or potential motion?
I'll do both.
Go ahead, Tiffany.
I am excited to see this. So thank you, Jody, for bringing this to our attention. I think that this is something that we've been discussing for quite a while. So it's great to see. I think it also falls in line with Peter's monthly requests. Well, maybe not monthly because we haven't been having meetings, but the last few meetings where he's asked us to spend the maintenance budget and make sure that that the Parking Commission is taking care of our existing assets. And I think that this is a huge step one. So thank you for that. And I will move to approve staff to select a consultant for a garage maintenance plan with a budget not to exceed $50,000.
So moved.
I can second it and then like to discuss.
It is moved and seconded. Go ahead, Peter.
Why is the maintenance plan limited to the garage structures and not the surface parking?
That is a great question. We can look at doing a maintenance plan for the rest of the structures. We can add this to the existing request that we have for consultants. Where we generally see the greatest need for maintenance and a maintenance plan is in our parking structures. That is not to say that we don't need a similar plan for our lots, our surface lots. But something that I would be interested in with regard to the lots is an assessment not only of the maintenance of them, but also of the configuration of the parking spaces within them to be more efficient, to see if we can gain any additional spaces, things like that. And it just, in my mind, seemed like a separate process. It doesn't mean that it has to be.
I guess my experience is the more you can bundle, especially when it involves a singular entity. I hear Martin and Martin, someone like that, absolutely. DCI, those entities could provide that analysis as well. And so I think just to bundle it together, you're gonna get better value. yeah, I would like to treat all assets comprehensively in terms of the maintenance plan. And I agree with you that the garages certainly, they're more complex. They'll require they'll be a little bit more complicated to develop the maintenance plan. Service parking, super simple, but I think to the extent that we capture that in a singular maintenance plan for all of NPC's inventory would be beneficial.
We have a seconded motion on the table. Any other questions or comments?
There's
Any
no
questions?
members from the public to present for comment.
Thank you. Anybody in the room? Okay, Danette, actually for this one, let's voice vote. All those in favor of the motion 9.3 to approve staff to select a consultant for garage maintenance plan with a budget not to exceed $50,000, please say aye. Aye.
And
What was her? Okay.
We'll move forward.
Okay.
All right. Main Street. So I know we have been talking about this for a long time, but I think for benefit of the public, it is important to review how we got to where we are today. So I will make this brief. Since March 2023, the north side of our Bank Street parking structure has been closed off due to a structural failure. Our goal right now is to address the life safety issue that we have. For fiscal year 25, the board set our budget for this repair at $6.5 million. DCI performed our initial conditions assessment and provided several options ranging from demolition to replacement. And that through that assessment, we came up with that $6.5 million figure. We then moved forward with hiring DCI as our design team. They work with SMA Architects, ACE Mechanical Engineers, and WGM Group for the civil part of this repair. And then we did an RFP to hire a CMGC, and that's Jackson Contractor Group. We were originally moving forward with an option to rebuild the structure completely at that estimated $6.5 million. When the rebuild initial estimate is attached to the agenda for anyone to see, it came in at closer to $8.8 million, which is a little over $60,000 per space to maintain essentially what we already have. And to create no additional revenue generation. It also did not include any improvements to the structure or additional amenities for the public. After review, staff recommended that we revisit a repair option that would get us closer to within our budget while still addressing the life safety concerns. And the board agreed for us to move forward with looking at that option with our contractor. In our last board meeting, staff was directed to meet with the Millennium Building and First Interstate Bank to discuss their appetite to change the existing height easement to potentially see if some different thing could be in that space. At that meeting, what we heard is that there is not a current appetite to release that height easement by the existing owners, which makes the rebuild with additional floors a non-starter. Staff is still not recommending the rebuild option. Also, in our last board meeting, staff was directed to get a fee and scope proposal for the demolition of the top deck of Bank Street. If we demolished the Bank Street structure, it would not look like this picture here. However, Linda McCarthy graciously provided us with this picture of what the Millennium site looked like prior to the new First Interstate Bank building, the new Millennium building, and the Bank Street structure. Well, you'll have to send it. I love this picture so much, and it just seems like a beautiful picture to include for you all when thinking about that demolition option.
So the scope and fee proposal for that option was included in the agenda attachments for today. The demolition scope would include removal of the deck and supports, shoring up the adjacent properties, and restriping what would become a surface parking lot. The fee for this work is roughly $2.7 million. Currently, the top deck of the parking garage has 77 spaces, 34 of which are no charge spaces for Millennium and FIB. Those spaces we are required to provide through 2032, regardless of how many spaces we have there. So even if it's a surface lot, we would need to still provide 34 no charge spaces to the bank and to Millennium. On the top deck, there are also 26 hourly pay spaces, which are available for parking for $1 an hour during our operating hours, and 17 leased parking spaces that currently serve 22 leased parkers and generate an annual revenue of $22,000. Staff is not recommending demolition at this time, but we did want to do our due diligence and provide this option to the board for review. And now we have our repair option. So our initial estimate for the Bank Street repair came in at $3.9 million. It was included in the attachments again for this agenda item. We have been working with Jackson and our design team to refine the scope, and so far have found roughly $430,000 in savings, which would bring the total repair cost down to $3.5 million. I asked Steve at Baker Tilly to run initial financial numbers for $3.9 million, and at this point, there is no issue with coverage for that debt. Our goal with this repair is to address the existing life safety issue and to maintain the number of parking spaces in our existing inventory. Staff recommends that we move forward with the Bank Street repair option. And we have members of Jackson and DCI here today to answer board questions.
Okay. As a commission and as staff and as our stakeholders, we have been discussing these specific options for over a year. We have been talking about this life safety issue since March of 23. And I think it's fair to say everybody in the room would agree that this is a very difficult decision, not because we have a difficult decision about what to do, but we are likely to bring forward and accept a very expensive option to not add any parking or capacity or any additional revenue for the commission. And I should have said this a different way, or any more services or parking for our public. We are not forwarding our mission by any of these options because we are not expanding our ability to add parking or promote our services. I wanted to discuss today to very quickly revisit again any questions that the commission had about the full scope, the $8.8 million option, the go all the way down to grade level, the $2.6 million demolition option. Again, just so that as a commission, we are clear about what we may like or not like about those options, and then what leads us to this $3.9 million options. I'd also like to hear from our stakeholders about where they see the process and at this point, and then I'll have some questions for DCI and Jackson. So I will tee up the commission, and I would ask that we don't have a motion yet because we have a lot of information to make sure that we are all literally and figuratively on the same page about what we're deciding today. So the risk of putting you on the spot, Peter, would you begin? Why do you not feel that the $8.8 million option is the best option for a commission, our mission, the public, etc.?
If I understand correctly, we can't afford it. It's not financially viable as it relates to bonding capacity and all the rest. So in that sense, that's the extent of my thinking, Joe. It's off the table. Let's go and have a bake sale. Big base.
Pretty big big sale.
And you don't get any more parking out of that.
You don't get
Yeah,
it.
I mean, there'd be other reasons. I would go farther with my analysis if needed, but I think it's a non-starter.
JR, Tiffany, any comments about the $8.8 million option?
No, that's consistent with my understanding.
Anything, Tiffany? Okay, so
No.
same question, Peter, on the spot. Why is demolition and surface parking not your favorite option? And maybe you can sell us on that as well.
I think to me, that both are on the table, these two options. And I would have further questions for ECI and Jackson. Maybe I'll just provide an overview, Joe, of thoughts as it relates to it. Certainly the repair option is less disruptive, to at least to maintain inventory, aesthetically less disruptive, seemingly a better value. And I say seemingly because the delta's about 1.3 million, I believe. That preserves, was it 77 spaces on the top deck?
Yeah.
So certainly in the short term, it's a better value. The reason I would continue to contemplate a demolition would be in consideration of future possibilities. I think we need to think more broadly. What is for that additional 1.3 million? Is there money, better value spent elsewhere off that site?
Tiffany, JR?
I don't have anything to add.
I don't necessarily have anything to add. I think that surface parking is off the table for me wholly. I don't think that that's adding to the services that we provide to the businesses and stakeholders and just general public that come to the downtown area. And while a full repair rebuild would be amazing, it's simply not on the table. And I think that surface parking is also not on the table for me. I just can't see taking down a structure that, even though it is not beautiful, after rebuild will have just, there would just be more benefit to the public than a gross strip of asphalt where most of that parking is going to be free bank parking for, I forget the year that you said, but for a number of years. Like, it's for the amount of money that it costs to turn it into an asphalt lot compared to repairing it. I just think that there's more benefit in the repair option.
My opinion, Peter, about the demolition and surface parking option is perhaps a pithy way to say, but we'd be spending $2.6 million to lose 77 spots. And while we would have perhaps more flexibility in the near term and long term about redeveloping that site, if and when a lot of our constraints were not in place, the fact is that we don't know if and when those constraints would not be in place to allow us, beginning with the 32 non-revenue spots that are committed to the bank and to the Millennium Building. So for me, that was off the table. It was on the table at first just because it seemed to be an easier approach to address the life safety issues, taking all mission of our providing of parking and loss of revenue. Second to that is our relationships and the services that we provide to our immediate stakeholders. So that it does leave our repair option as the only less distasteful option for us to pursue because again, unfortunately, we're spending all of this money to not replace any parking. We are significantly, but we are addressing our life safety issues, which is more than an existential threat right now. We know that it is a life safety issue and we continue to block it off and wish that something worse won't happen. Perhaps, gentlemen, you have something to add, but I would just ask you to answer a specific scope of the question now, which is what would reducing the scope of the parking garage to just surface mean for your entity?
Well, I want to correct a couple of things. First of all, none of the slots are slated for the Millennium Building. It's all the bank. And I also believe if you look at the agreement, there's a 6 permanent slots. So it's actually a total of 40 slots, 32 of which are, or 34 of which are temporary. So it actually, with the surface parking, it's more than I think you're suggesting. Clearly, we prefer not to go back to what that very nice picture of what it was in 1998 is. And what it would mean is obviously we need to figure out how would you deal with the approach to our building. That's the entrances on that Bank Street. I don't know, beyond that, I guess I'd turn to the contractors and say, what would it look like? I mean, I don't think it's a good move, but that's my view, Bruce.
Bruce?
I think that access to the two buildings would be radically impacted. They're designed to be accessed at the street level, at the upper street level, and not the ground level. And it would impact those structures would have to undergo extensive remodeling in order to be functional. And so it's a pretty substantial related impact.
Thank you. Lynn, did you have anything?
I was imagining a blow-up slide outside your door.
Yeah, that's. Lynn, anything on behalf of the, okay.
No, sorry, my apologies.
No.
I just think that taking it out is, like you said, you're removing a significant amount of parking and paying a significant amount of money to do that. Not serving the public, not serving the constituents.
So, absent any other comments by the commission or anybody in the room, let's discuss the repair option, the 3.9, 3.5 option. So, Stephen, putting you on the spot, would you give us 3 minutes of what the scope is now for the benefit of the public? I hope everyone's had a chance to look at the scope of the plan right now, but introduce the project, and then Stephen, I'll go to you for how you got to that number.
Sure. Sorry, I just had a question.
I apologize. Yes. It's not that you were hidden over there, but I didn't.
Yeah, I'm hiding in the corner. It's okay. As far as expanding the lot or going above the current easements, what were kind of the reasons not to add a third level to it?
I'd be prepared to talk to it off this meeting.
I'll give you every opportunity, but a question to a stakeholder outside the commission, I'll move it to the end of the meeting. Okay. Stephen.
Yeah, so I think everyone's had an opportunity to read the schematic report and the plans that we put together beginning of February for the current repair plan. It currently includes, repairing an obviously failed double T bearing in the northwest corner. We would be providing a new concrete beam to help support that row of failed double T bearings as crushing and measuring just to have it just extra support and just solid foundation for the 10-year repair. The idea would be that we would be going through and replacing all the double T bearing pads. So, underneath the double T bearing.
Would you define double T bearing?
Double T is so the main structure is precast double T members. They span 66 feet from other concrete beam to other concrete beam. And so to sit on the main concrete girders, you have a elastomeric pad. That's basically a rubber pad that allows that double T2, the main member to, distribute its bearing on its support. And so a lot of those, if you look up, have either completely split or started walking off their support, or varying degrees of squish, I guess, right? And so the idea would be that has caused some of our issues with bearing failure, along with all the water infiltration over the years. So the idea is we would be replacing those bearing pads to a more suitable product to avoid that in the future. So after, we would also be replacing the concrete toppings over on the deck, just to get a nice surface for the main event, which would be the waterproof membrane over the deck. We've been currently researching the Sika brand is a product. They have varying levels of durability, but the one we have kind of been looking at with Jackson has a 10-year warranty. So it makes sense with the 10-year repair plan to have a topping that would be warranted for 10 years. Other items that would be being taken care of would be the new canopy over the stair. That west stair has seen a lot of water infiltration over the years into the mechanical room, which has caused a lot of damage to the electrical equipment, which will all be replaced as well. The idea would be we would provide a waterproof membrane over the current stair, and then kind of report a concrete topping over the waterproof membrane to create, a sealed barrier. So we would be saying that water infiltration into the mechanical room after that. Those are the main structural items. Everything else kind of falls under that. So it's like architecturally, there would be some, just cleaning up of the masonry around there. There will be some fixing masonry patching around the columns, as we'll be providing some additional support to the west side beams. And we would be architecturally also be looking at providing steel, just black painted steel barriers at the lower level, the replacement of the that kind of teal brake metal that's there now that kind of fills. So we'll need to be removing some of that to get to some of the repairs. So not a huge architectural addition, I guess, to the project. And then mechanically, speaking for other people right now, but my recollection is that there will be, replacement of the electrical equipment, and there'll be likely a lot of work done to plumbing and fire suppression lines. As part of the repair process will require that to be moved around a little bit. So I think you probably speak to it about that.
So a couple of things. Does the current plan keep all the parking in place, our parking camp? Does the current plan keep all of our accesses in place that generally Millennium Building and First State Bank have now?
Sure.
As well as pedestrian access, so farmers market, etc. All of that access remains in place.
Yes.
It's important for us and the public to understand when you say 10-year repair option. What's that really mean?
I guess it's sort of arbitrary, but remember the initial report, we gave 4 levels of repair. I believe it was basically like, this is what needs to be done immediately. This is what would be a 10-year lifespan of existing structure. This is what would take a 20-year lifespan of existing structure, and then the 4th option is complete replacement. And so, as we've been directed by the board to follow the 10-year or 10-year recommendations.
Primarily, if I remember, please correct me, other board members, that the 20-year option was in the $6 million range.
Yeah, if I recall correctly, it was not significantly less than replacing the structure. So
It was within a couple $100,000 of full replacement.
Full price.
And that was the initial estimate.
Okay. Elaborate again on water incursion, mitigating a water incursion, and how it plays into our future, how it makes it easier to maintain.
sure, yeah, the idea would be that, part of the kind of repair of the elevated deck would be to go through and replace all the culp joints, because if you go down there below, it's falling through, and then it's really created the pathway for all the water to get down there, which is creating all the structural issues. So replacing all the culp joints, we would be replacing the expansion joint in the building and the edge of the concrete deck.
Yep.
Which actually is in decent shape, but it's about time to replace it anyways. And then, so the idea would be replacing the concrete cast plate strips that are over there that you can see there's potholes in some. So basically creating, or getting a nice service for the deck prior to the specialty contractor coming in and replacing the waterproof membrane of the deck. And that would, the idea being that would create a waterproof surface with traffic coating for the elevated deck to stop water infiltration.
And putting your engineer's stamp on the line here, do you believe that the current plan, as you've drawn it, addresses the current life safety issues and any other life safety issues that you might have seen within the facility for whatever that warranty period is?
That's the intent, yeah. And so, like, obviously, the northwest corner is the most obvious. It's short up right now, and so the idea would be going through and chipping out all the broken concrete on all those failed double T bearing and patching new concrete, the new pads, as I mentioned. Then the addition of that concrete being northwest corner would just fix the issue that we're seeing with this corner of the failed bearing. And then the addition of the concrete portals that would be epoxied onto the columns on the west line would also is also a great benefit because some of the connections that we kind of demoed and took a look at, there's some rust going on in those connections as well. And so we're providing a life safety fix for those.
Okay, so we could represent to the public that we've commissioned a design that addresses the current life safety issues and reaches an industry standard that addresses however safe a garage like that could possibly be, absent operational failure, a car running into a column, whatever.
Yeah, I think that would be a fair statement.
Okay. Any other questions, comments, Commission?
Could you just educate me real quick on this design excellence review? And I was unclear, is that part of this repair option? Like it had it as one of the risks on the budget replacement, and then it mentions it in the exclusions for this one. I'm just curious, like, what the trigger for that is, because it seems like it could affect permitting, the timeline on the permitting.
So it's my understanding is the design excellence is the additional review. It usually would take place if there was more of an architecturally significant change occurring.
Oh, okay.
But since it's
not
part of
it shouldn't be an issue on this one. It's more concerned if it was a full replacement, whether it triggers some additional architectural features.
Design excellence is triggered by remodeling a structure or by rebuilding or replacing a structure. It is not triggered by repairs.
Got it. So
Since
it
we're not
shouldn't be a
changing.
factor with this one.
Exactly, yeah.
Questions about design before we move on to cost?
Well, it's either design or construction, either you can answer this, but if you were to take your crystal ball, flash forward 10 years, is your best assessment that it would be time for a replacement of this structure or a major repair? What would the expectation be? Hopefully I'm not on the board in 10 years. But yeah, for those future commissioners, Jody may still be here. She's good and young. Well, what's the expectation?
I can go first. I think it's highly dependent on how it's maintained.
It'll be maintained well. Let's assume that.
Okay, you're proposing the maintenance plan, right?
Yeah.
And we're gonna follow it to a
There you
T,
go.
so assuming all of that.
Okay, so it's all adhered to.
I think as we were initially set with so I guess in the initial request from the parking commission, we were given the stipulation of immediate 10-year, 20-year, and forward. So I guess those words, those guidelines were from the commission itself. And so we kind of based our level of repair on our best judgment of what 10 years would get us to. And so I personally, I think it's well maintained. I have no qualms about it going 10 years plus. But I think the goal of the 10-year repair is probably to obviously get it past 10 years, but then leave the option open, I guess, for whatever the commission sees as a future for that location.
I didn't call that a non-answer.
What about you? Well, I was just gonna add on to that. I think the other portion of that, and I know we're not talking about that right now, but we've also given lots of other options to reduce costs. And I think you guys need to weigh those, and because again, this is a repair, you can take repairs very, very far. Knowing that there's going to be budget constraints, and we can start to reduce those repairs to save cost. And when we reduce those repairs, you could likely run into instances where it might not last 10 years. And we can go through those in more detail if you want. So.
I don't think we gave the answer to my.
Well, I think it's giving you two options, right? When it fails, and we don't know, is it 8 years, is it 15 years, but is it major repair or is it replacement at that point? Based on like what is getting repaired at this point and what's not.
I heard him guarantee performance for 15 years. Let's move on. Tiffany, do you have any questions before we start talking about cost and scope?
No, sir, I do not.
Okay, so Stephen,
Can I just say one thing? And Stephen, you did such a great job of detailing all of the things that we're going to be doing in the structure. One other element that we are looking at adding is a height restricting structure at the entrance, because water intrusion is an issue, but another issue is oversized vehicles that degrade the concrete and the bearings, and they cause all sorts of problems, and we've been unsuccessful so far in keeping oversized vehicles out. So part of that scope in the repair is to build a structure, a physical barrier to oversized vehicles getting into the structure, which should also improve the repair's lifespan. So I just wanted to make sure that that was in there too.
Thanks for that. Yeah, that is another important part of that, because part of the reason we're seeing some of the double T ground pad issues is they were overloaded with heaters, right?
Sure.
But delivery vehicles coming in, doing turnaround, and going out.
Brings trucks full of money.
Yeah.
And the other piece I wanted to touch on that Stephen from Jackson had talked about is when we are looking at different elements to repair and not to repair, any items that we are removing that don't perhaps need immediate repair, I've directed Jackson to please include in our maintenance plan document as things that we can budget for going forward. So putting them in a timeline, like this should be repaired in the next 5 years. We're not doing it right now, but in the next 5 years, we might want all new drain covers or whatever it is. And so those elements aren't just being handpicked and removed and thrown away. They're being put into a plan for our future budgeting and planning, so that we can continue to prolong the life of that structure beyond just this immediate life safety repair. It's not my time to speak, but I want it to be.
Joe, I've got a different question. Maybe I can get an answer. What element of the structure, once you've implemented this repair option, would you expect would fail first?
Ooh.
There we go.
I'd say your caulking joints. I mean, water intrusion is probably your worst enemy.
Okay, but I assume that's part of the maintenance plan.
Yeah, I would expect it to be your caulking joints, your expansion joints along your buildings. maybe the traffic coding as years and you start to plow snow off of it. There might be some repair work to the traffic coding. I can't think anything else.
Yeah, I guess the way I see it is like the main issue, the main problem causers would be oversized vehicles, water intrusion, and then, you know, just generally overloading the structure. And so I think, salt. And so we've provided some guidance to Brandon on different alternative snow melt to use at the stairs and on the deck as needed that don't contain chlorides, which are what really causes a lot of concrete degradation. Mostly it gets into your steel reinforcement, your steel embeds. So that causing that to rust, that rusting causes expansion, which cracks your concrete. And so I think one very, very important thing will be to investigate further or purchase non-chloride snow melt salts. So I think we've gotten that going. That can be part of the maintenance plan as well. We've already touched on the oversized vehicle guard gate or whatever. And then I think another one that's important is snow, how we manage the snow on the deck. Is oftentimes it gets pushed into one corner, and if it's piled high enough, you are overloading the deck over its 40 psf light bloom. And you know, I don't know if you saw that there was a failure in a deck in Ontario, Canada. It's like pushed all the snow in one corner. So I think that would be another important thing that we want to keep in mind, I guess.
And in our maintenance plan, there is going to be a recommendation for how snow removal is done, correct?
Okay, so for our stakeholders, would you briefly address any concerns or questions or how you got to this point? Your opinions of the current scope and design, and keeping in mind returning to Jackson and their process and cost after this, but I'll open it up to the three of you about your awareness, participation, understanding of the current scope of the design.
I had just one question, and I guess it was, you raised it, is the 10-year design criteria based on the warranty for that surface material you're going to put on for water intrusion? Is that only a 10-year warranty? I'm just wondering if, because I think that we all agree, lack of that maintenance, well, first of all, the fact that it wasn't done correctly, but the lack of the maintenance on that has been a real reason for why we're here today. So I just wonder if that's one of the reasons why you're at the 10-year limit, because I think with maintenance, it will go much longer than that. And I think there will be better maintenance.
Yeah, and I think so as well. The reason I brought up the 10-year warranty is because the secret brand they have, like I mentioned, they have alternative products.
That's what I thought. That's
and
what
so
I just want to clarify.
The other products that are a little cheaper, they only have a 5-year warranty.
Right.
So it made sense for us to, for doing at least 10-year repair, we better do a 10-year warranty.
And the other thing I'll say is, I don't know, Bruce, maybe you know, I don't know if those snow gates we put in there 25 years ago have ever been used.
No, I mean, not in my time, thanks.
So, I mean, that was the reason we were supposed to be moving the snow off the deck down. Of course, comes right down in front of the entrance to the parking garage.
And
which
then
is
needs
a
to be
great idea.
removed
And then
secondarily.
That's
Yeah,
right.
that's true.
But they've never been used.
Yeah, no,
So there are things that can be done.
absolutely.
Bruce, Linda, any questions or comments about the design scope?
I appreciate the trouble you've gone to work through these challenges. I'm encouraged particularly by making sure there's a substantial barrier to oversized vehicles. Something that would match the other garages. And just a note, the opening on that northeast corner is wider than what you have to the Patty Street garage. So there's plenty of room in width, but we've struggled with illegal oversized vehicles since day one on there. Everything from tour buses to heavy maintenance vehicles, and a barrier would be put up and it would last maybe 2 weeks. It was a real challenge, but I think that particularly that maintenance plan going forward is a critical part of the whole solution. And I strongly support that and appreciate that that's a component that you all are moving ahead with.
I guess I might add, even though it's outside of the scope of what we were looking at, is I know there's delivery vehicles coming in on Bank Street, right? And then they kind of get stuck because they're gonna have to 8-point turn, to the bank, into the drive-through of the bank. And so we talked about it with SMA, the architects, and that's not true, but it might be worth looking into having a better exit route for those delivery vehicles to further avoid that issue.
May I comment about that? What we've noticed is that the FedEx people and the big trucks that come in there have figured out that they can do a simple circuit to get back out on Bank Street. That no longer, they just simply, before, I think we're taking the easy solution, but that there's plenty of room there for those big trucks to get turned around. Providing an exit for them would be a real mistake, because then they'd be challenged by that with something even bigger. I think you're good there from my non-technical standpoint. I've been watching it for 25 years, and that's what I've seen.
Linda?
For the duration of my time with the partnership, the Parking Commission has always wanted to have and implement a maintenance plan for the structures. And it hasn't gotten there, and that's got to be a priority. And, our maintenance team at the Parking Commission knows that you shouldn't be using salt because we don't allow it on the sidewalks, we don't allow it in the streets. And, having the snow gates up top, we've never used them. And, you have to push the snow off the level, top level, and then you have to go down and clean it off the bottom level. We know that takes a couple, attacks at snow removal, but maintenance is the baseline problem here, and we got out the game, period.
Okay, so Stephen Thomas, I think we all understand construction manager at risk, so this is not a question about the delivery method or why your contractor was engaged now, but I would like to hear how you pivoted from the full design to this 10-year repair, and what you and your team did to identify cost risk, how you landed at this number, your depth and breadth of seeking out subcontractors, your efforts with Jody to provide as cost-effective a building as possible.
That's a lot of questions, Jim.
So I stopped sharing my screen because we also have Tyler from Jackson up on virtually, and he has all of the documents and the trend estimates and things. So if he can supplement your answer with any sharing, he is welcome to do so now.
Yeah, I guess I'll just start off and say, as a CMGC, we're hired to give you probable costs when we go out to bid. So I just want to make sure everybody understands that right now we're at an SD schematic design level of drawings. DCI's drawings are much further than that, I believe. We're working from narratives for mechanical, plumbing, electrical, a lot of architectural stuff, which is fine. But when we work from those narratives, we have lots of site visits. This project inherently requires a lot of site visits. We actually have to physically go count connections. What are we going to do with these repairs? How are we going to deal with these repairs? And then we quantify all of that and get it into our estimate. When we can't quantify it, so you'll notice there's things in here that we just can't. When we see notes like repair masonry caulk joints, right? Repair to what level? The eye of the beholder, right? And so we include allowances to address those things. And we go to a not to exceed amount on those items, if that makes sense. I don't know, Tyler.
Where those items will be time and materials? Is that?
Yeah, so we usually address those, in our contract with you guys, and these are clear allowance items. And when we either can identify the quantity at a later date, or we just treat them as time and materials with you guys. And again, allowance items, if you don't spend the money, or you choose not to, it's your money. I just real quick on the process as well, right? So, if you guys were to move forward with this repair option, there's still a level of design to finish the drawings, finish the plan based on all the narratives. And then there's a whole bidding process that we go through, right? So we'll send this out, we go get competitive bids, and then we present with you guys a more formal price, if that makes sense.
Well, and we end up, before we start anything, we get to a guaranteed maximum price, right? That's like the final decision before we move forward with anything. So we do end up having to get to a number that we're all comfortable with before we move forward.
So the 3.9 in front of us today is not definitive.
Correct. Yep. And the reason being is, again, we're trying to get you as close as we think when the drawings are done, this out, what the price is. What you'll see right now is in the market, there's a lot of people hungry for work. We can go reach out to 5 electricians to price this right now. Competition in the market will drive the price down, and it's better for you guys. So.
But the numbers you do have are live numbers.
Correct. Yep. Live numbers. Like I said, we got quotes, as many quotes as we could when we can identify the work. We walked through it with electricians, plumbers, mechanical engineers. We've met multiple times with waterproofing consultants. We've walked through with mason contractors to talk about how we're going to repair some of the caps and stuff like that.
Are there any parts that Jackson will definitely self-perform?
Yeah, so we will bid on most of the structural repair work. All of that repair work will require a general contractor of some sorts. There's not really a lot of, I'll just call repair contractors out there that are, you've got to go demo out existing concrete surfaces, do repair work, whether it be with rebar, embeds, steel plates, and then a lot of forming and pouring concrete. That's pretty specialty. So yeah, there's a lot of scope that Jackson will look to self-perform as well.
And I know that the two of you understand this, so I'm saying this for an exterior audience. But when you bid on self-performing scopes, you also solicit other bids from perhaps competitors.
Yep.
And when it comes time on bid day, that's your bid and competitive bids are both in sealed envelopes.
Correct. So we'll send this out on the Montana Plans Exchange. It'll be available to everybody. We have an internal Procore system. Subcontractors are more than welcome to bid on any scope that we do. And then typically what we do is a bid opening process where anybody can come and Jackson will submit a bid no different than any subcontractor, and we can kind of open and read them out loud right in front of everybody.
So I'll rephrase it. Are there parts of the construction that Jackson will do for which you won't be competitively bidding?
No, it's required by the city's procurement to have a fair bidding process on any scope that exceeds $80,000.
Yeah, we haven't identified any here.
Yeah.
Why we wouldn't bid everything out. There's no reason to not bid everything.
And at the risk of being a little weedy, examples I've always used is like the fencing. Yeah, they could go out and get a bid to put up fencing, but it's in their general conditions right now, so that's probably not going out to bid.
Yeah.
But fencing is an example of something that they will, quote, self-perform, will get paid for it. Could it be provided by somebody that's not Jackson? Perhaps, but it's not going to necessarily bid out. But structural concrete, all of that,
yep.
Rust mitigation, all of that stuff is bid out. So you're at 3.9, 3.6 with some VE value engineering on it. Generally, and this is unfair question, but generally in your experience between SV and a guaranteed maximum price, what variance are you seeing in your recent experience? And what do you expect in this case? Because in a month or two, when we push the button, are we going to get a $4.9 million number in front of us?
My experience has been the opposite. Usually this number drops. And reason being is, it depends on timing of the year and how busy contractors are, but this is the most bidding environment that I've ever seen at Jackson. There's a lot of people looking for work. I usually just chalk that up to, it usually drives the number down when there's competition. So.
Any other questions about cost and scope? Construction cost and scope? Oh, schedule. Where are you at right
so
now?
Right now we're at 7 months. The critical factor that we're going to run into is the traffic membrane.
Mm-hmm.
So the goal is we want to be done with this end of the year. Jody's made that very clear, and so we're trying to figure out ways to get that traffic membrane down. There's constraints on that with weather and non-rain days. Right now, the critical path is through the drawings and the permit process. Sorry about that. Fortunately or unfortunately, we're probably going to be staring down, 8 to 10 weeks on permitting. And so how do we try and reduce that? Maybe there's some conversations we can have. Again, this is repair work, but we haven't had we haven't started those conversations.
How much more does, in a calendar in time, how much more time do you have in design?
Speaking with our sub-consultants, they were estimating 8 weeks to get final drawings. I think that's what I estimate based on those conversations. I think Jackson and DCI will have a conversation as soon as we're allowed to move forward with the design on ways to potentially shorten that to get the permit process going while finishing 100% CDs. But that conversation, we'll need to have a conversation with the city and the building department on what they'll accept at that level.
Okay. Commission, any questions about construction costs and scope? Schedule. Tiffany, any questions of construction's cost and schedule?
No, sir.
Stakeholders, any question or comment?
There's one comment I have, and I don't think there's anything you can do about it, but this project's going to be happening during the middle of the summer, it appears. And we program Caras Park, and those stairs are a key access point to Caras Park, particularly during events and Saturday markets. So we're going to need to have some good signage and redirecting of pedestrian traffic to the other side of Higgins so people can get down to the park. We'll need to work with the market, make sure that they've got the information that they need to direct people to the market at the one location that they'll have. And those are just, construction inconveniences. I understand that.
Yeah. So, and that was part of, I think, even our proposal of showing pedestrians how they're going to have to manage around the space down there. And so, like to Joe's comment, we do have a fully fenced site. Our plan is to fully fence that off, and then I guess this could lead to larger discussions of, do we want to put things on the fence that you guys want to put on the fence of directing people elsewhere? We usually do a lot of the signage as well, but maybe there's some other items that you guys.
I'm imagining we'll need signage at the intersection up front, and Higgins, not necessarily on the fence, but we can work on that.
And I think there's opportunities for your tenants and residents to take direction from you, not necessarily from a sign on the fence saying avoid this area, but your direction as well.
Yeah, so Jackson will provide the paths for people to go through, and then it will be on us to communicate those paths out. The NDA is a great resource for us. We're marketing partners with them, and they put out newsletters weekly, monthly, that have a pretty high open rate. And so we'll be providing them the information to hopefully push out to their members. I am the current president of the Clark Fork River Market Board, and so they are also being informed. And I've been working with the market manager on that to talk about how people can move through, especially since this is kind of going to overlap with the end of the Karis Terrace project that will be starting up again soon. And that Karis Terrace project has a portion of the land that the market usually uses blocked off as well. So it is going to be a coordinated communications effort, for sure.
Okay, so did you have some, Bruce?
Just a quick comment. I heard that permitting timing is fairly critical, and please let us know so that we can help out any way that we can for that. And I'm also on the SAM committee downtown, and as is Jody, and we will be mindful of ways in which there might be some interconnection. One of them is we have freight delivery people on that committee that might have some ideas, but I think we're good there. But there's a lot of ways that we might be helpful. Just let us know. We'll do what we can. Great.
So the decision in front of us today is not to necessarily agree to that 3.9 million or whatever the number ends up to be. Is rather my intention of going through the beginning and going through all the steps and design and scope and cost and how we got here was to reassure ourselves that the repair option is still our preferred option and within our financial ability, our tolerance, our goals, our public service, etc. There will still be another opportunity to review the guaranteed maximum price proposal. So that's not necessarily this meeting, but you heard Stephen Thomas say ballpark is 3.9, and generally in his experience, he sees it goes down absent some big design change or a big change in subcontractor market. So still open to any questions or comments of any of our stakeholders or our consultants and contractors, and open to a potential motion.
I think,
yes, Stephen.
I think one thing I'll add as far as schedule and the board having an opportunity to review anything at this point is, I think we're going to need to be going pretty quick and finishing our design drawings. So I just wanted to make it clear that, you know,
we will schedule an emergency board meeting to approve the GMP when it gets here. It's urgent, focused.
6 months construction, 8 months construction, 7 months.
Commission
So,
discussion.
just quick comment, Jody, and that would be that the whole concept, like the more we bundle, the better value we get. So, I guess I'm reluctant to like pull things off of like trying to value engineer it down if it's somehow compromising the long-term integrity of this structure. Like, you know, putting in things later. I didn't like the sound of that. So just, I'm okay with spending the full amount if it's good value.
Thank you, I appreciate that. I can give you an example of something that we pulled, and it was to replace the concrete caps where the light fixtures are from like flat square ones that they are right now that aren't damaged, that aren't, you know, they're not broken and not in need of desperate repair, with some that are like angled slightly.
Sure.
And that replacement costs like $22,000 and the value add is $0.
Great.
So it's things like that I'm removing. It's not things that are like, oh, this is going to, you know, not bearing pads. We're going to do all of those. Okay.
I'm ready to make a motion.
Go ahead.
All right. And I want to thank you all because I know I pushed for the demolition option and I'm much more comfortable voting for this than I would have been otherwise. And I'm just grateful to Jackson that their estimate wasn't $1 million, because I think we'd have a really very difficult decision. So thank you very much. So I will make a motion that staff moves forward with the Bank Street repair plan outlined by the design team.
So moved.
Second.
And a second. Tiffany, any questions or comments?
No, sir.
Any other commission questions or comments on the seconded motion? Any questions or comments from the public, stakeholders, partners?
Yes, just so I have it right, you're moving forward with the plan, but a final cost estimate, I mean, that's TBD. And
Well, we have what's called a schematic design estimate in place now, which is generally 66% completed drawings.
Mhm.
So as you heard Stephen Thomas say, he's comfortable with that, how he landed on that number. Current bidding environment. General standard practice is once you go out to competitive bid, most numbers go down. So 3.9 is the number that, at least in our minds, I guess I'll speak for myself. In my minds, I'm going to support the motion because in my mind, it's going to be 3.9 at the top end.
and then just going to your next meeting, if the number appears too high, could you halt the project, or is this kind of set? Okay.
Yeah, right now we are saying, keep moving forward with the design process. We are not approving a project.
And we're also not approving a complete replacement, nor going down to just a surface level parking at all. I think we're dismissing those options from further planning or consideration.
Okay. Yeah.
Any other questions or comments from the public?
There are
Annette?
no members of the public to present.
Okay, Danette, will you run a roll call vote, please?
Peter Walker Killewer, how do you vote?
Approve.
J.R. Casillas, how do you vote?
Approve.
Tiffany Brander, how do you vote?
Approve.
Joe Easton, how do you vote?
Approve. So let's push through the last. We don't have any non-action items. We don't have new business. We don't have any old business. I thank you again to the commission and to Jody for moving this meeting out a week, but we're going back to our second Tuesday of the month, which is what, April 8th-ish?
In the council chambers.
In the council chambers. So if you're sitting in here alone, you'll know why. Any concerns, commission, about April 8th? Peter, I'm looking in your direction.
No.
Okay. Any other questions or comments for the good of the order? We'll adjourn the meeting. It is 1:56.
Thank you. Have a good afternoon, everyone.
Thank you.